Hi, friends. My name's Trish Roberts, and you're watching Faint Signals from Vega. This is a bit of an unusual live stream because I'm asking for some support for a wonderful program called The Empire Files with Abby Martin. Abby Martin is an independent journalist, and she was with Breaking the Set on Russian TV, and then she moved on to The Empire Files via Telesur English. And Telesur English is located in Venezuela. And as you might know, Venezuela is suffering terrible U.S. sanctions at the moment. And hi, Cher. So they're suffering terrible U.S. sanctions at the moment, and unfortunately, the Empire Files cannot get funding because of these sanctions. Telesur just can't manage to get the funding for the Empire Files, which means that it cannot proceed. And it's like one of the most important, I think, programs exposing empire and the corruption and imperialism. And so it would be great if people could, if you were able to donate to the Empire Files. They're doing a fundraiser at the moment. It's a you can either make a one-off donation or a monthly thing. And so the one-off, the donations, you can make them via GoFundMe, and I will leave a link to that, or I think I've left it actually in the information section of this live stream. So the Empire Files is I'm going to read what they put out to indicate that they're no longer able to continue with it. And you'll find some interesting information there. And this is just part of the censorship of the left. I was reading tonight that Facebook, excuse me, Facebook has removed about 600 pages now that they claim are, Iranian funded or Russian something or other. And, just nonsense, really. It's just all made up stuff because the Atlantic Council, which is a neocon imperialist warmongering think tank, is now sort of instructing Facebook on on what's okay and what's not okay. You can imagine what that means for the left, what that means for pages like Real Progressives and the Jimmy Dore Show, so excuse me, pollen again, and all these different left sort of like Redacted Tonight and all of that. It's not good. And there's been Telesur, they've deleted Telesur's account on Facebook twice now and then reinstated it. I'm not sure what on earth they're doing. I don't know if they're just messing with them or they're just whatever it is. But anyway, so the Empire Files is another victim of censorship because it's it's all related. Crippling U.S. sanctions on Venezuela, which is now managed to censor the Empire Files, which is an incredibly important program. And so I'll read you this sort of announcement by Abby Martin and the Empire Files so that you can get an idea of what they've been trying to do. So just wait a minute and I'll pop this up. So they released something today. The U.S. sanctions shut down the Empire Files with Abby Martin. The Empire Files is temporarily appealing for donations on a one-time and monthly basis to continue production in the midst of U.S. attacks on the Telesur network. As a result of U.S. sanctions against Venezuela, the Empire Files has been forced to completely shut down operations. The Empire Files, which airs on Telesur throughout Latin America and on Free Speech TV, excuse me, and the Real News Network in the United States, has been funded through a contract with the Telesur network. As Abby Martin's primary broadcast, it has released over 100 documentaries, interviews, and on-the-ground exposés from battlefields in Palestine, Venezuela, and beyond. As a result of financial attacks by the US government on the primary source of Telesur's funding, production has halted before the completion of Empire Files Season 2. Season 3, contracted for 26 episodes, was scheduled to begin on July 1st, but with the US government blocking wire transfers that originate in Venezuela, the ability to receive funding has not been possible. For over a year, funding has been sporadic and often delayed. The Empire Files has been operating by alternating between waiting for late payments and funding production out of pocket. However, with US attacks and sanctions intensifying, the ability to receive funds appears to have been cut off completely. Contract Telesur journalists elsewhere, including at Empire Files, have had funding blocked by the US government for over 6 months. Even wire transfers not originating Venezuela but ally countries which also fund Telesur have been severed. There appears to be no solution and no end in sight to this ongoing financial attack. The Empire Files officially halted all production on May 27th and had to cut all staff prior to that, but we have been holding off on an official announcement in hopes that the wall put in place by the Trump administration would be overcome. We are making this announcement now because after numerous attempts and constant rejections of all types of fund transfers, we do not believe this barrier will be removed in the near future. The U.S. State Department has been involved in regime change projects in Venezuela since the election of the late President Hugo Chavez, first expressed by a violent coup in 2002. During that coup, Venezuela's state media and pro-government media were shut down by the US-backed junta. Yet economic sanctions on Venezuela were not implemented until the Obama administration in 2015. The Trump administration has taken these sanctions to new heights. The most recent escalation came on May 21, 2018, the day after President Maduro democratically won re-election, apparently to punish the Venezuelan people for electing the quote-unquote wrong candidate. Today, the U.S. sanctions on Venezuela are the worst sanctions on any country in the region since those against Nicaragua in the 1980s, according to Mark Weisbrot of the Center for Economic and Policy Research, a time when the Reagan administration was waging a full-blown bloody war against the Nicaraguan people. Similarly, it is Venezuela's poor and working class who are, by design, suffering most from these sanctions today. These economic attacks cannot be viewed on their own, but part and parcel of a regime change operation. While this is just one front in the U.S. strategy, the sanctions are coupled with violent U.S.-backed coup attempts in Venezuela, including the August 4th assassination attempt on President Maduro. Telesur has always been included as a target for its association with the government. A thwarted US-backed coup plot in 2015 included plans to bomb the Telesur News building in Caracas. In 2017, a Telesur News team was ambushed by US-backed opposition forces and nearly lynched. One Telesur reporter was shot in the back during the assault. Likewise, Abby Martin and Empire Files producer Mike Preisner were the target of pro-coup politicians and journalists, receiving hundreds of death threats and causing them to flee Venezuela when they were conducting on-the-ground reporting. In addition, Telesur, along with the other main left-wing news source on Venezuela, Venezuela Analysis, were recently targets of online censorship. Already hit with quote-unquote warnings and quote-unquote sensitive content, bans on YouTube and Twitter, their pages were recently deleted, although later reinstated by Facebook. Facebook is currently collaborating with the Atlantic Council, stacked with CIA agents, Iraq war architects, big oil, and the weapons industry to decide which media outlets, quote, sow discord, end quote. With only rhetoric of increased aggression, coming from the Trump administration, including threats of all-out U.S. military bombing and invasion, there is no reason, excuse me, to think this multi-pronged attack will subside. The entire Empire Files team, which has included a variety of dedicated videographers, editors, animators, graphic designers, composers, audio engineers, writers, researchers, interns, and more, has spent nearly 3 years doing dedicated, rigorous, and sometimes life-threatening work to deliver a high-quality, politically important show once a week. From the hidden casualties on the US-Mexico border to environmental disasters in the endangered rainforests to the most viewed reporting on the crisis in Venezuela, interviews with President Rafael Correa, Cornel West, Noam Chomsky, Ahed Tamimi, and other important figures. Profiles of often unheard voices of migrant domestic workers, young revolutionary activists, immigrant children, current victims, hurricane victims, third-party candidates, and more, to in-depth educational documentaries on socialism, the crimes of the U.S. empire, and histories and crises hidden by the mainstream media. The Empire Files has been extremely proud to make this small contribution to a broader movement for change. But we do not intend to stop this project as long as there are possibilities to continue. We are prepared to resume production of weekly programs for Telesur as soon as blocks on funding are lifted or circumvented. However, this could mean 6 months, a year, or never. We know our colleagues at Telesur have been fighting for a solution for us and other contractors and will continue to do so. In the meantime, we are appealing to our supporters for donations on a one-time basis or as monthly sustainers to restart production, rehire staff, and release new episodes for as long as funding permits. Current expenses include $6,000 US for Empire Files journalists in Gaza. And it's almost finished. I'm almost finished this. Got a little friend here. In the intermediate term, we hope to raise enough funds to complete post-production on our recent unreleased footage. Most importantly, our urgent footage and interviews captured by Empire Files journalists in Palestine's besieged Gaza Strip. This includes footage of the Great March of Return, video of never-before-seen brutality by Israeli forces against unarmed protesters at the border fence, interviews with family of slain medic Razan al-Najjar and wounded medical workers, and much more. In addition, we have hours of unreleased footage of Abby Martin on the ground in Colombia's quote-unquote peace zones, featuring interviews with FARC leaders and members with a rare first-hand look at the country's historic peace process as it hangs in the balance after the victory of the far right in the presidential election. If we raise enough money to cover the cost of releasing all of this important content over a span of several episodes, we can then dedicate funds to new filming and production that is not subject to attacks by the Pentagon. This includes documentaries on everything from Trump's war machine to the hidden repression of environmental activists. We ask for your support to expose the crimes of the U.S. empire at this critical time, as well as your solidarity with Telesur and Venezuela's right to self-determination. So, anyway, so that's their release that they put out today. So I really hope that it's possible people will be able to do what they can to support this really, I think, a groundbreaking program that is so important today. It's really, really, really important. It's a sort of like a one-of-a-kind in many ways. And I've been following Abby Martin over the years, and she's the real deal. She's a real independent journalist who has such great empathy for the disenfranchised and for the oppressed, and somebody who just is a really incredible person and deserves our support. So I was going to show you some images from the Empire Files. these are what I'm going to show you now are just the many programs that they've done. So I'll just flick through some of them. There's a whole, you can, after you watch this, you can have a look at the various programs. You can find it at empirefiles.tv, I think it is, or the empirefiles.tv. So these are all the many programs. There's many on Palestine and just incredible programs. I've pretty much seen most of them. There's a few that I have to catch up with. And you can also, so you can sort of have a look at them. They're all the various ones that they've done since they began. And you can have a look at those. You can sort of stop them or just go to the site and have a look at them. Here's some images from, this is Dan Cohen, who is another incredible, he actually did the documentary with Max Blumenthal called Killing Gaza, and I've seen it, and I did an interview on Real Progressives with Dan Cohen and Max Blumenthal about Killing Gaza. It's fantastic. Anyway, Dan Cohen has helped with the Empire Files, and I think there could be in Palestine at that in this photo. That's just some photos of them. I'm not exactly sure where that was. Oh, that could have been when they went to see what was happening with migrants and ICE. That's a really full-on program. This is from when they went to, I think this is in Palestine as well. I can't be entirely sure. That definitely is. That they couldn't go to Gaza because Israel, the Israeli government wouldn't let Abby Martin into Gaza, but she went to the West Bank with her partner, and they did a few Empire Files, really about 6 programs, different programs on that. Really fantastic. Oh, that's Abby Martin and her partner, Mike Preisner. And by the way, Mike Preisner has an incredible podcast that he started called Eyes Left, EYES LEFT, and it's directed at the military. He's an Iraqi veteran, and he does the podcast with Spencer Rapone, who is an Afghanistan veteran, and it's incredibly insightful. And it's basically sort of underneath it all, or not even underneath it all, it's urging people in the military who are questioning what they're doing, these immoral wars, to resist. And that's another very important podcast that I've mentioned a few times. So they're doing great work, both of them. This is also in I think in the West Bank. That's Michael Preisner and Abby Martin and Black Lives Matter members, and that's just Abby leaning against a wall there somewhere in Palestine. They're in Palestine there. That's Abby Martin interviewing Ahed Tamimi's father, Basim Tamimi, a very brave man who they do a lot of protests against the settlements, the illegal settlements in Nabi Saleh, and other sorts of they're incredible family, the Tamimis. These are just images from their trip over there. And this is another image. See the water bottles there? They went into the desert where the ice is tipping out the water from the water bottles that were left by groups, leaving water for these immigrants that are forced to take these treacherous journeys through the desert. They're fleeing. They're desperate, and they're fleeing their country, and they have to travel through these terrible hot conditions, and they basically run out of water, and then these groups have left water for them, and then ICE agents tip the water out. It's just appalling. It's murder, basically, to do that. And so there's been many people have died. So they did Empire Files did a program on that. This is Abby Martin when she was working with Russian TV and that incredible show called Breaking the Set, which was really the show that kind of woke me up. I was still in a bit of being an Australian. We don't get any decent media here. we have we have the media all sewn up kind of like in the United States, and it's run by Rupert Murdoch. And so you don't really get anything that is anything truthful or meaningful, really. And I'd say that's pretty much the same from SBS and ABC at this point. They've all fallen into, basically it's just a mess. And so if it weren't for Breaking the Set, I'm not sure I would have a clue. I started watching that in 2013, and I don't think I had a clue really what was going on with the duopoly in the United States and what a disaster that was and everything else that was happening. So I have to personally thank Abby Martin for waking me up to what was going on, because we really don't get any real information in Australia at all. And I'd say you could probably say the same for if you live in the US. You pretty much don't get any information that's real except from independent journalists like Max Blumenthal, Ben Norton, Abby Martin, Lee Camp, The Jimmy Dore Show, Moderate Rebels, and different ones like that. And the Real News Network. And this is Abby Martin interviewing Ahed Tamimi, that incredible Palestinian hero that just got out of prison. She's 17 now. What an incredible person she is. And so there's Abby Martin with Ahed Tamimi. This is Abby Martin interviewing Jill Stein for the Empire Files. And this is Abby Martin, her partner, at a trans rights protest, trans rights support. And this is Abby Martin in Germany with Jill Stein at the activism event. This is Abby Martin with Chris Hedges, the Pulitzer Prize recipient. And Chris Hedges, by the way, has just released a book. It's come out in the last day or so, called America, the Farewell Tour. And you can actually, Ralph Nader has interviewed Chris Hedges about the book. So if you look up Ralph Nader's site, you'll find an interview about this very important book, America, the Farewell Tour. So try and get a hold of a copy of that. And this is Abby in Venezuela. She's interviewing the US-funded right wing who were setting people on fire and setting buses on fire and basically running around causing chaos. And they ended up basically Abby and Mike and the crew had to flee Venezuela because they started getting lots of death threats. So this is all kinds of fire, and this is the US. When I say US funded, they have given the opposition a whole lot of money, and so it's sort of just a mess, really. And so anyway, that's their reporting on the ground in Venezuela, and this is when they got tear gassed, and you can see Abby was, I think, throwing her lungs up basically, and Mike can hardly see. And here she's interviewing President Correa. And this is her with Stephen Cohen talking. He's an incredible academic and has been studying Russia and has lived in Russia 40 years. And that was really, really interesting. That's Abby and Chris Hedges again. This is Abby and her brother Mike. This is Abby and her brother Robbie Martin, and they do a podcast together. They do 4 podcasts every month, or approximately that. And it's an incredible podcast. It's called Media Roots, and if you want to find out what's going on in general, if you tune into that, because they basically sort of go through pretty much a lot of content, and it's fascinating, and it's actually incredibly informative. Probably my favorite podcast, I'd say, without a arguably, it's really fantastic. And this is Abby Martin with Joe Rogan. She was on there talking about Palestine, which was really great because Joe Rogan has like millions of viewers, subscribers to his YouTube channel, and she got to say some really important things about apartheid Israel. So that was really, really good. And this is Dennis Kucinich and Abby. Anyway, I'm coming to the end here, and these are the three amigos, but in a good way. Jimmy Dore, Lee Camp, and Abby. They're all great. And this is Cornell West, the wonderful Cornell West. So anyway, this is just, I just thought I'd show you some just personalized things so that you can, this is Abby and a partner again. And this is the last one. Abby just looking wistful at a sparkler. That's about it. Okay, so anyway, that I just wanted to show some personalized things so you get an idea of the where they are, what they do, and what they look like, and basically get a feel, and that information I shared. It's something to consider. I'll leave the link so you can read it again. And I normally don't for a long time, I've been talking about the Empire Files because it's just such an important program, a long time. And so it's very sad for me that this has happened. And of course, I'm sure it's devastating really for the people involved because it is such important work. And as I said, Abby Martin is such a wonderful, she's such an incredible journalist and an incredible human being, and she feels very deeply about. Basically, if we don't address what U.S. empire is doing, it's at the center of a lot of. It's at the center of pretty much all the wars, all the meddling, the overthrowing of countries and governments, and the killing of millions. And if we don't sort of at least know what's going on, how can we even address things? And most people don't really know what's going on. All they about, all they get is Russia, 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 and Trump, Trump, Trump. Trump did this, Trump did that. Yada, yada, yada. It's rubbish. And, if we don't have any decent, we have no decent fourth estate anymore. The fourth estate is pretty much dead. We have Assange locked in an embassy and, who will probably end up being extradited to the United States, and they'll throw away the key after they lock him up. Edward Snowden and Russia. I mean, it's galloping fascism is what it is. And the censorship from these large mega media things like YouTube and Facebook, as I like to call it, fascist book. I actually loathe Facebook, but unfortunately, this is like, as Jimmy Dore said, it's like the town square. There is no alternative really that is as big as Facebook if you have billions of people on there, even though the algorithms basically censor most things. But you have some chance of getting across. And YouTube is the same. They're already taking down things. And even though I don't like Alex Jones, his channel at all, or InfoWars, it's very problematic to say the least. But, it was very clear that when they did that, that was just an excuse. And then, it was very predictable that they were going to follow with taking down leftist sites, and it's going that way very quickly now. It's a little bit like algae on a pond. It starts off slowly and then suddenly it's all over the pond, and that's what's happening right now. So if we don't support if we don't support the really, really important programs like Empire Files and the like, then we are fucked, basically. We're well and truly, if we don't have any sort of real information coming through, we are, in a really bad way. And we already are in a bad way. Most people don't know what the hell's going on. They don't even know what they don't know. So anyway, that's really all I wanted to say. And I understand that everybody is so strapped for money. Real progressives are strapped for money. Everybody's strapped for money. I'm strapped for money, but I've made a donation because it's just so important. And and I do a Patreon thing with Media Roots and Eyes Left. And, and if you can't give any money, just try and disseminate information. Just try and share the link, this link that I'm going to leave, or I think I might have, it contains all the information. Just share it around as much as possible, the link to, the information about this sort of travesty, really. So that's all I wanted to say. So thank you so much for watching, and also support Real Progressives because they do great work. And as we know, those of you who are on Real Progressives, MMT is very important. It's a very, very important topic. And there's other things as well that are on this page that is important. So let's just band together and do what we can, because it's up to us now. It's up to us. There's no real fourth estate anymore. If we don't support these independent journalists, then there is nothing, nada, nothing. And then once the establishment has that all sewn up, and there is no real information getting out anywhere, then they're absolutely home and hosed. It's like it's all over. So anyway, thank you so much for watching. My name's Trish Roberts, and you're watching Faint Signals from Vega. Be kind to one another. Until next time, bye for now.